Vaccines and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee voted 17-4 with one abstention to recommend the vaccine developed by American pharmaceutical giant Pfizer and its German partner BioNTech to combat the disease that has killed over 292,000 people in the United States. This panel of independent experts advising the U.S. FDA recommended overwhelmingly that the agency authorize Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine for widespread use in the U.S. The U.S. government is trying to secure 100 million additional doses of Pfizer Inc.'s coronavirus vaccine. Operation Warp Speed, the government program to accelerate vaccine development, is offering to help to increase production of the vaccine developed by Pfizer and German partner BioNTech. The U.S. death toll from COVID-19 has surpassed the number of World War II combat fatalities yesterday, just hours after this committee of leading U.S. vaccine scientists recommended the FDA authorize this first COVID-19 vaccine for Americans. Rhode Island, the smallest state in the U.S., has seen the country's fastest spread of the coronavirus in the last week. The New England state recorded about 123 new cases per 100,000 people each day over the last week, marking the country's highest average daily COVID-19 cases per capita, according to data compiled by Johns Hopkins University. Any adverse effects from COVID-19 vaccines are for national authorities to review, according to the World Health Organization this morning, in response to questions about Britain warning people with a history of anaphylaxis to avoid the Pfizer-BioNTech shot. President-elect Joe Biden announced several administration picks, including Obama-era officials such as former National Security Advisor Susan Rice as White House Domestic Policy Council Director. And the president-elect is naming her as director of the White House Domestic Policy Council, giving her broad sway over his administration's approach to immigration, health care, and racial inequality, and elevating the prominence of the position in the West Wing. A newly revealed federal criminal probe into the business dealings of Joe Biden's son Hunter will complicate the president-elect's selection of a new U.S. Attorney General. Former Justice Department officials and legal experts are saying this yesterday. And the Texas lawsuit asking the U.S. Supreme Court to invalidate President-elect Joe Biden's victory has quickly become a conservative litmus test as 106 members of Congress and multiple state attorneys general signed into the case, even as some have predicted it'll fail. In that lawsuit that was filed earlier this week, Paxton claims Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin tainted the integrity of the election through the use of mail-in ballots, and their results should be overturned. On a conference call with reporters yesterday, Texas Senator John Cornyn said he's not convinced the Texas lawsuit to nullify the election results in those states has any merit. Convicted former movie producer Harvey Weinstein is expected to appear briefly via video from a New York prison as part of legal efforts to send him to California to face sexual assault charges. And the Trump administration finalized a regulation that greatly restricts access to asylum in the United States, part of a last-minute immigration crackdown that incoming President Joe Biden will likely try to reverse. Hundreds of Hondurans trying to start a new caravan to reach the U.S. border were stopped by Honduran security personnel yesterday before they even reached the border with neighboring Guatemala. And the world's largest iceberg is closing in on a South Atlantic island and has the potential to cause major damage to wildlife if it becomes grounded near the island. The A68 Ave iceberg, which NASA estimates to be roughly the size of Delaware, broke off from the Larsen Sea ice shelf in Antarctica 3 years ago, and currently it is making its way through the southern Antarctic front towards the island of South Georgia. U.S. aircraft carried out 2 strikes yesterday against a stronghold of Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab rebels in Somalia, days after President Trump ordered a withdrawal of the estimated 800 U.S. troops in the East African nation. And a UN-backed tribunal sentenced a member of the Hezbollah militant group to life imprisonment today for his involvement in the 2005 assassination of former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafik Hariri. Lebanon's Hezbollah group today said recently filed charges were politically targeting the caretaker prime minister and 3 allied former ministers over this summer's massive explosion in Beirut. And the United States believes reports of Eritrean military involvement in the conflict in Ethiopia's Tigray region are credible. Ethiopia's government said it had sent truckloads of wheat to Tigray as a row of access continued to keep nearly all foreign aid agencies out of the northern region. International aid groups said today that at least 4 staff members have been killed in the conflict in the Tigray region, while Ethiopia and a frustrated United Nations aired differing views on a growing humanitarian crisis. Ethiopia's prime minister, though, shifted a focus away from the war, opening a cross-border highway to Kenya at the opposite end of his country. The UN General Assembly approved a resolution over Russian objections commending progress in peace talks between the Afghan government and the Taliban, while urging stepped-up efforts to tackle terrorist attacks by the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State extremist group and their affiliates. President Tayyip Erdogan has said that U.S. sanctions over Turkey's purchase of Russian S-400 missiles would be disrespectful of a NATO ally, after sources said Washington was poised to take the step likely to worsen bilateral relations. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has said European Union leaders agreed at a summit that the question of arms exports to Turkey should be discussed among NATO members and in coordination with the next U.S. administration. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen told the 27 national European Union leaders meeting in Brussels today a no-deal split in trading ties with Britain at the end of the year was now more likely than not. A senior official has said that Sunday's target date for a Brexit deal might well turn into another missed deadline in the saga, adding that the latest developments in the European Union-UK talks did not leave them very optimistic. President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris are Time's 2020 Person of the Year. And we do have also earlier that they named basketball superstar LeBron James Athlete of the Year for his achievements on and off the court. And the 35-year-old Los Angeles Lakers player was honored for battling voter suppression among black citizens in a year when he won his fourth NBA title. And Indian-American Rahul Dubey, who had opened the doors of his Washington, D.C. home to over 70 people demonstrating against the killing of George Floyd, has been hailed among the heroes of 2020 by Time magazine, honoring those who went above and beyond the call of duty this year. BTS has had more than just a dynamite year. They've become such a global phenomenon that Time magazine has named the South Korean group its 2020 Entertainer of the Year. Nearly half the 15-member UN Security Council plan to raise the issue of rights abuses in North Korea during a closed-door meeting today, a move likely to anger Pyongyang after Russia and China objected to a public briefing. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Radio Caravan, and Huawei Chief Financial Officer Meng Wanzhou's witness cross-examination has been extended into next week as the court proceedings yesterday were disrupted for over an hour after a border official admitted to giving incomplete testimony. Taiwan has commissioned the first of a new fleet of Coast Guard ships today, an advanced catamaran that can be armed with missiles during war as the island bolsters its defenses in the face of what it sees as a growing threat from Beijing. China is imposing restrictions on travel to Hong Kong by some U.S. Officials, and Hong Kong democracy activist and media tycoon, the 73-year-old Jimmy Lai, has been charged under the city's national security law on suspicion of colluding with foreign forces. Australia has cancelled the production of a locally made COVID-19 vaccine after trial volunteers falsely tested positive for HIV, meaning the drug could interfere with diagnosis of that virus. The World Health Organization, national regulatory authorities and vaccine manufacturers in the Southeast Asia region today discuss fast-tracking of coronavirus vaccine rollout in member countries. India, the world's biggest vaccine maker, getting set for the massive global blitz to contain the pandemic with its pharmaceutical industry and partners, freeing up capacity and accelerating investments even without firm purchase orders. India's COVID-19 caseload climbed with over 31,500 fresh infections, while the total number of recoveries surged to 92.53 lakhs, pushing the national recovery rate to 94.74%. And it is the fourth consecutive day when India's active caseload remained below 4 lakhs. Senior India batsman Rohit Sharma today cleared an eagerly watched fitness test at the National Cricket Academy in Bengaluru and is expected to leave for Australia. India and Australia warming up for the much-anticipated 4-test Border Gavaskar Trophy through a 3-day pink ball warm-up test at Sydney. The envoys of France, Germany and the European Union will mark the 5th anniversary of the Paris Agreement by visiting Kochi, which has benefited from several Indo-European partnership projects to tackle challenges arising from climate change. Just over a month after the first launch mission of the year, the Indian Space Research Organisation gearing up to launch a communications satellite aboard India's Workhorse on the 17th of this month. And the Delhi High Court stayed an order of the Central Information Commission directing the Indian Air Force to provide information regarding special flight returns and details relating to the Prime Minister's security apparatus. With the talks between the government as well as the farmers remaining inconclusive, Haryana farmer leaders have made it clear that they will continue the protests. The Bharatiya Kisan Union approaching the Supreme Court today, and the protesters are going to block the Delhi-Jaipur highway by tomorrow. The 9 newborn babies have died at Rajasthan government's JK Lone Hospital in Kota in 2 days, and an adult male elephant was killed by a speeding train on the outskirts of Guwahati in the wee hours of this morning. An avalanche has hit Himachal Pradesh's Lahore and Spiti district. And U.S. Secretary of State Michael Pompeo has issued a presidential waiver for Pakistan, exempting it from the sanctions that follow a country's designation as a violator of religious freedom. And the first flight of British airline Virgin Atlantic, which took off from Manchester, landed in Islamabad this morning. We do have Prime Minister Imran Khan appointing Hafiz Sheikh as the Federal Minister for Finance. And that's all I have in the news.